Hey folks, welcome to Smart Simple Fit. My name is Davin, and today I have the pleasure of speaking to Max Shethar. He is the younger brother of Sam Shethar, for those who know of him. These guys are some of the strongest, freakiest dudes you will ever see on the internet, lifting just insane numbers on the squat, bench, deadlift, and other exercises. Today we're going to discuss various things related to powerlifting, Max's background with exercise, some of the crazy numbers he's hit along the way, some of the things he's focused on, and how to cure a poverty bench. Max, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I don't know if I have the tips and tricks to cure a poverty bench, but
Work in progress, right? Work in progress.
yeah, yeah. I know how to get generally good enough that it seems less bad
Okay,
in comparison.
that's very humble of you. What's the heaviest bench at the time of this recording?
I've done 475 on a fat pad and then 469 on a comp bench.
Only 469. Oh, only 460.
And it's definitely strange. I don't know what vibes I give off, but people just don't seem to care about my bench.
Awesome. Well, if we were to discuss your training background, was there any one particular thing that got you into lifting? Was it just curiosity? Did you see Sam lifting? What got you into exercising?
I was a pretty like angsty kid, and also I like didn't do anything. Like I just like kind of watched Family Guy and played Skyrim for like 10 hours a day. I was a real like loser of a kid, but I like always didn't want to be. I remember I'd have like these like fits of motivation, and I'd go just like sprint outside and like do push-ups, and then I'd be like, "Ooh, that was hard," and stop exercising for another 2 weeks.
Yeah,
So I'd have
yeah.
these like bursts of motivation or I'd like run wind sprints, decide I was still fat, and then give up. But my brother started lifting weights for boxing, and I just like begged him to take me to the gym because I was like, the idea of being strong was really cool. I just had no motivation, and I was like, Sam, please, I like you have to make me do this. And he was going before school at that point, and so he would wake me up, and we had this very classic thing where he would wake me up, I would go back to sleep, he'd come back in, and be like, dude, I'm leaving right now. You have to come with me. And I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. And then I'd go back to bed. And after a little while, he got like a wooden dowel that he called like the wiki eggs and bacon sticks, and he would just beat me in the shins until I got up. He would go like, "Hey, you got 3 seconds to get out of bed," and he'd come in and just crack me in the shins.
This is a real
And I
story,
bought it.
right?
Yeah, this is a real story.
Okay, perfect, perfect.
I think my dad still has the wiki eggs and bacon stick. Uh, I fought it for like a long time. I would start like going to bed with like a pillow on top of my shins because I knew he was gonna come in, and like I really deserved it too because he would come in and he'd go like, "Hey, you have to be up right now," and I go, "Yes, absolutely." I'd get up and then I'd lie back down and go back to sleep, and he'd come in and just crack me in the shins, and after a couple of weeks, I gave up. I started waking up when he told me to. And so we were going to the YMCA, and initially I really did not like it. I like it was discomfort for someone who had lived a very, very like chillaxed, only top ramen lifestyle. And so it was something that like I wanted to be good at, but like I just was bad at being disciplined at all. And so like I'd go with him for like a month and then I'd like kind of stop and then I'd start going again. And eventually I think it became like enough of my life that I was starting to get like more invested. Like I was like frustrated when I'd fail PRs and like that was the thing that would like drive me to start going more often. And eventually that just morphed into it being my whole life.
Interesting, interesting. Now, as we had discussed a little bit before we started the recording, I was reviewing. There's a great video for anyone who wants to watch of Max Sheether's deadlift transformation. A really epic montage of from age 12 to up to 19, some big lifts. Now, you were hitting some pretty impressive numbers at a very young age. Just for the audience's reference, 315 deadlift at age 12, 500 deadlift at age 14, I believe, 705 at age 16. And of course, last year it was 804 competition at age 19. And just a couple months ago on the stiff bar, 800 looked easy. Like that thing moved really fast. So these are some impressive numbers. Did that help create in you a sense of identity where it's like, I have an inclination to be good at this? Were you noticing that you were standing out compared to your peers, and then that kind of gave you something to lean into? Or did the big success of it, did that not really hit you until later? Or maybe you still don't view it as big. How'd that play out?
I think part of it is like I like desperately wanted an identity as a kid. And so like the idea of like this is the first thing I feel like I've been like kind of naturally good at was like huge and I really clung on to that. Um but I don't think I like ever was like, whoa, I'm like exceptional at this. Because it's like I'd go on Instagram, I'd find like
Yeah,
whatever, the 14-year-old that was stronger than me, and I'd be like, I'm gonna try.
yeah,
Because like I don't think I've ever like I don't really compare myself to like the other people at the gym. I like look up at who's the best in the world. I'm like, dang, I still got like a long way to go if you look at it like that. And so that's usually like the perspective I have. And so like occasionally someone will be like, dude, you're like insane. And I'll be like, oh yeah, I guess I like now I'm a lot farther than where I started, but in comparison to like a 2,500 total, it's like, damn, I got a long way to go still.
yeah. It's true. That's just proof, everyone, that social media can definitely be like creating some bigorexia and anorexia and strength dysphoria going on there to hold yourself to the greatest, catchiest thing that's blown up on the algorithm. I've got a little cousin who's maybe she's 12 now, but at the time when she was 11 years old in competition was like snatching like almost a plate, right? Like almost a plate, which is pretty good. And then at the same time, there's this girl on Instagram. I think she's Canadian as well, and she was squatting like 3 plates at 12 or
Yeah,
13, something like that.
yeah, I
Yeah,
saw
yeah,
that. That's
yeah. Just nutty.
yeah. I think part of it is like I had like a weirdly big ego for someone who sucked, and I was like, oh, if they can do it, of course I can. And
Yeah,
so
no problem.
I think I had less of like the negative effects of like looking at people and like, well, I suck because I was like, oh, of course I can. Like I just had this like weirdly large ego for someone who definitely didn't deserve it. Where it's like, oh yeah, if I just like train hard, I'll also deadlift 900 pounds. Like I just have to.
So far,
So
so good.
I think the 13-year-old ego kind of helped me in staving off some of the negatives of that. But I think it's true that a lot of people are just like, well, I'm trash. Like, and it's like, I mean, yeah, you've also been training for like 2 years, you know? It's like you could pick out the guys who are like the true genetic anomalies who like got good in 4 years. But like if you look at most of them, they've been training for 15 years. You know, like people really forget where it's like John Hack was lifting weights at like 11 years old in his parents' basement. He's not been doing this for 2 years. I'm sure he sucked when he was 14 and had only been training for 2 years. And if he
Yeah.
was like, oh, well, I'm not good yet, we wouldn't have like John Hack.
No, he wouldn't be John Hack. Yeah, and not only is it like the time, but even when people talk about steroids, I promote on my channel for people to stay away from drugs. Obviously, you're natty, but even when someone's on PEDs, like to solely attribute success only to PEDs is foolish, right? Like these people who stand out and are on something have been training for a long time, a lot of them. So it's not fair to say. Obviously, compare it wouldn't be a fair comparison to someone who's natty necessarily, but at the exact same time, they've still put in years, and that's worth. Yeah,
Yeah, I think most of the people who are elite lifters would be elite kind of regardless of drug testing status. Like either side of the aisle they land on, the thing that's making them good is not just drugs. Like almost never is that the case that someone is just such a hyper responder that they would be trash now.
I tend to agree with that. Now, your testimony about lacking discipline, I think people have different opinions on the whole generation thing. I think there's something to be said about the modern generation raised on technology and Doritos and TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and all this stuff. I'm 24 myself. I can relate to a lot of that stuff you were saying. I'm sure a lot of people watching this right now, they can relate to being on and off with exercise. At what point or at what age did it become fully cemented as something that you said, I'm just going to hunker down and commit to this? Was there a
uh,
distinct moment?
I think it was like at 12 was when I was going 6 days a week. But I think it was like at like 13, I like did my first powerlifting meet and I was like, I think I have a chance to be like actually good at this. Like this is my thing. Like it really like I probably like I definitely put all of my eggs in one basket because I really stopped like doing school as well. I was like, this is the thing I'm doing full time. Like this is what I'm doing. So yeah,
Well,
probably about
so
13,
you
14.
got
I
it
had
together
this.
at a pretty young age, 13.
Yeah. I I didn't lose all of my bad habits. I don't think my diet was very good at 13, but I wanted to be good at that age.
Awesome. So now that you've been competing and you've been coached by Sam for like 8 years, when you look forward to the rest of the coming year and the years ahead, what are some of the aspirations that you currently have, whether it's for powerlifting or just in general?
Um, I'm usually pretty like short-sighted with that kind of thing. I feel like it's like whatever like the next goal is or just this block is kind of all I'm focused on. And so like I very rarely like am like big picture, where do I need to be in 3 years? Because I have no clue where I'm going to be in 3 years. Hopefully it's pretty strong. But so usually it's like just block to block. It's like what do I need to get better for the next two blocks is like the farthest I look out. And so I'm 6 weeks out right now. So just trying to make sure I'm as well prepared as I can be for that. Um, and
Okay,
then
so
I've got like,
what are the numbers you're hoping to hit in that next 6 weeks?
ooh, I don't know. So I'm coming off a back tweak. I tweaked my back in meet prep.
Right about
And
that.
we pulled back pretty hard and we've rehabbed it and it's going pretty well so far. So I'm hoping we could be in pretty good shape by the time we get to the meet. But that kind of threw the estimates out the window. I'd like to trip my squat PR. I think I'm more than strong enough to do that right now. So my best squat is 760. So 766, maybe 350 kilos, hit 770. Bench really depends. I had a weird block last block where I hypertrophy went crazy, like went the best it's ever gone. And then when we went to go peak, we like ramped it up quickly because we needed to do like half a block in order to like line my blocks up for this competition, and it just didn't pan out. And so I'm kind of just attributing that to like ramping up too quickly rather than just being like, well, no benefit from having a great hypertrophy phase. So we're now with the longer full block, and my back didn't affect my bench much. The hope is I get like a solid like 10, 11 pound bench PR to 474 or 479 would be my two like main goals on there. One of those two. And then the deadlift is kind of questionable. If I'm smart, I'll pull 793. If I'm not, I'll just go for an all-time deadlift PR. So, that'll be a little bit of an IQ test on the day.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I mean, if you're able to hit either the squat or deadlift or even just one of them as an all-time PR, I think after a back tweak, that's pretty good, especially in that kind of territory would be amazing. So,
It's really funny. I have only ever missed one squat or deadlift in a competition, and I'm doing it for 10 years, and I've done like a dozen competitions at this point. If I missed either of those, I would consider it like a terrible day.
wow.
I know that's not like the good way to look at it, but like if I missed one of either, I would like trash day.
So how do you view a perspective if someone had a different perspective on training where it's like normal to plan to go big on like the third one, thinking that you're probably going to miss it and to miss like a third lift a lot? It's a third attempt. Is that something that's a decent perspective, or do you like to just dot your I's and cross your T's so that you're always hitting the lifts that you go for?
There definitely are like different approaches to competition, and it kind of just depends on like what you're trying to like maximize. Because we are trying to go for like kind of like the best lifts on each individual lift I can get, and so we're taking pretty large jumps from like my second attempt to my third attempt. My last meet, I think my jump was like 60 or 70 pounds between my second attempt to my third attempt. Which, if you were trying to like if you were in like a world championship or something, you were trying to maximize your total, that would be a outrageously stupid decision if you were like anywhere near my like strength level, because that's such a huge drop from your total. Is if you lose 70 pounds, that could be over from the first event. And so if you're trying to like maximize your total in like a competition setting, you would probably make smaller jumps with the understanding of like, if I miss a third lift, it doesn't completely end my meet. I'm not at a world championship, and so I'm at like a local meet, and so it's like I'm going in there to try and get my like PRs is kind of what I'm going for, and usually that means slightly less than maybe we think I could do, and that's cool. And oftentimes when we like come into meets, we'll like have goals kind of flexible on the day, but the expectation is that I get all of my thirds, which is not always true, and I would say going 8 for 9 or 7 for 9 is a good day for a lot of elite lifters. So it would be very bogus of me to be like, that's terrible. That's really stupid. All of these lifters way better than me. Just make 100-pound jumps from your last warm-ups, you moron.
Is there any number for a total that's just like burning a hole in your mind right now? Like I really want this total. Is there anything that's
For
popping
this
up?
meet or in general?
Both, both.
Okay. So this is technically like a USAPL Pro qualifier, which is some real powerlifting nonsense. But hypothetically, if most of my competitors have a bad day and I have a perfect day, I could dots 500 right now, which would win me a pro card, which would let me do the pro series. So
Cool.
that would be cool. That would be, I think that's a 2066 total, which would be like 777, 479, 810, which would be like a literally a perfect day. My back would need to be like incredible. I would need to be strong on all three. So realistically, probably not what I'm going to total, but that would be like real perfect day. Everything goes incredible. And I'll just get like a sense of that after squats. If the guys I'm competing against are having good days, I will be like, all right, cool. We're gonna play it more conservative. And then in general, I'd really like a 1,000 kilo total. That's kind of like my benchmark right now that I'd really like to get to.
As far as like the long term, I know you didn't you mentioned not trying to think too far ahead. Do you view yourself as, this is are you coming to a close, like as far as you think I can't have many tens or hundreds of pounds left to add to each lift? Or do you look at this as, no, I have plenty of potential left. I just need to be smart, put in my work, not get slack, not get injured, stay dialed in on the food, the body weight, things like that. Do you view yourself as having a lot left to go for? Or is this sort of like you're trying to dial into get that 2200 and then say, move on to something else?
Oh no, this is gonna be like my whole life. Like I'm gonna be doing this for the next like 20 years straight. Um, this is kind of the game plan right now, and I don't know. I think I have a lot more in the tank. Especially, I don't plan on remaining natural for my whole lifting career. I probably only got like a few years left natural. I'd like to put up 2200 natty. That's kind of the point in
That
which
would be
I
insane.
have just
That would be absolutely insane.
and then probably hop on from there. And even then, I don't think this is, certainly lifter ego moment. I don't even think like I don't think 2200 is my like genetic potential. If I decided to remain natural and train the next 15 years natty, I don't think I would just like that's my hard barrier, right? Like I don't know, like my technique isn't perfect on all three lifts. There's a lot of gains to be made there. I still have, I don't know, 70 pounds of body weight I could put on it. I'm a super heavyweight. So it's like I could, or 70 pounds is too much. That's a lie. I probably have 40, 50, depending on how my physique changes, more body weight to put on. Like if I just that alone would carry my total quite a bit. So I don't think I'm anywhere close to my genetic potential. I hope I'm not.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's like that old saying, right? You'll only know if you try. That's it.
Yeah, I the whole genetic potential thing I'm pretty skeptical of, just because like by what definition are we using? Because like if I kidnapped a child and I forced them to eat ground beef and rice from the age of 0, like I gave them the optimal training plan, and I raised them to be a super heavyweight bloat lord, strongest person ever. All they've ever done is lift weights. By the time they're 35, they're going to be insanely strong. Like they're going to be
Monster.
crazy. And so it's like, is your genetic potential actually what you're genetically capable of, or is it your genetic potential within the time frame that you've been training? Because even then, it's like if you quit your job right now and full time lifted weights with a team of scientists, you would be really way stronger. Is that your genetic potential? So it's like it's a vague, not concrete number, and a lot of people treat it like it's like some number above your head that like that's the maximal number. And even if that number exists, you are never going to be even close. Like you could train incredibly well, you'll never approach whatever your actual genetic potential is.
Well, it's like you said, even going into this next competition, which is only a matter of weeks out, it's not like you have a magic number that you're going to hit. You're thinking, if things go perfectly, here's what it'd be like. Here's what my more wise decision would be to hit these numbers instead. Because again, you still don't know until you try. Even 6 weeks out of a competition, you still don't exactly know 100% how that's going to go on the day of. You have to show up and do it.
Yeah, even like day of, like it's like if I have a perfect prep and then like on the day I'm like, well, bench just feels heavy today. It's like that's gonna change my number. So it's like I don't know until I'm actively doing the lift. And sometimes I'm wrong. Like there's been times I've made the call of like I'm feeling strong today and I just wasn't strong enough to do that weight.
Awesome. Awesome. So going on to the specifically the topic of your bench press, you can say talk about the Max Shethar poverty bench. So what has been helpful in trying to correct that? I know Sam talked about, and you talked about as well, the focus of getting hypertrophy in the relevant muscles. Was there any particular approach to programming that sort of hypertrophy work or particular muscles, particular exercises? What seemed to work, and what are you going to try and do to continue to address the poverty bench?
Honestly, the like change in programming wasn't like massive. Like I've always been pressing 3 times a week, whether that be 2 bench, 1 overhead press, or 3 bench. Um, and like I've always done accessories, and so it's like the amount of muscle I had wasn't like dictated by the total volume. I would say it was mostly like quality of rep and intensity. Like a big part of it was like I was like I'm bad at benching. I don't like benching. I'd come in and I'd work less hard than I should have. Like I would just like kind of go through the motions to get through them because I was like, oh, I like deadlifting. I'm gonna be good at deadlifting. And like my deadlift days were very, very intense. I'd be deadlifting for like 3 hours, going crazy on all my accessories, like putting in the work because I wanted to make sure I hit a PR. And I kind of had this like doomer philosophy that like my bench was permanently like done for. And it led to a very bad physique. I had like a really thick torso and skinny arms for a while. It looked very goofy. But yeah, I think the biggest difference that was made was just like intensity and quality of movement on accessories. Like my tricep extensions were just like kind of getting through them. I remember when I was like I don't know 15, Sam came to the gym with me, and he like saw me doing my tricep extensions, and I was coming to like here maybe just going like, and he was like, "Dog, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you?" And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Those are literally terrible. Like you're not bending your elbow all the way." And I was like, "No, the mind muscle connection is great." And he's like, "Yeah, but you're not like moving your full range of motion." So if you want a quick tip, film your accessories every once in a while. You almost guaranteed are not doing exactly what you think you are, and sometimes you're really not doing what you think you're doing. Because I'll still like I'm 10 years into lifting. I'll set up a camera and be like, "Wow, that looks terrible. I thought I was doing these perfectly." So
Oh
film
yeah,
it. I know it's embarrassing to set up a phone to do like light hammer curls or whatever. Film your accessories every once in a while, and be honest with yourself what you're actually doing. And if you're bad at a lift, just force yourself to like it. Just get angry that you're bad at it and come in with a lot more intensity, because just intensity on your accessories is going to carry you like a long way.
yeah, yeah. There's something to said about becoming good at it. You'll then be good at it. Being good at it feels good, and it feels better than being bad at it. Like there's something to be said of just being good at something is why you like it. Like there's not much of a like sophisticated logical explanation of like why you like a certain exercise. I know when I look at my own program, I easily can fall into the bias of, oh, I'm already good at this. I'm going to keep training it because it's fun. Because being good is fun. And then it's like, well, if there's something that makes me uncomfortable that I suck at, that's sort of where I should be investing more. And I think that's an easy mistake to make. So that's a great tip to film the sets. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
I see guys who are like way more skewed for one lift than the other, and I'm always curious like what amount of that is actually like genetics or leverages, and how much of that is just like you're sinking all of your training priority into the one you think you're good at, and so you're way better than you would be. Because like some of the dudes that are like crazy good at deadlifting, I'm like, if your only goal was bench press, I think you'd bench 150 pounds more. So it's like how much of it is actually genetics and how much of it is just like you're like I'm deadlifting 3 times a week and like every squat session I'm tired for. I do a bad job and I don't work hard on squat sessions. Is it really your leverages, or are you just not working as hard as you should? Like you should probably be squatting more if you're not as well built for it, or spending more energy to fix it.
Yeah, 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 for sure. It's got to be. I agree with you. It's got to be a combination of things, and maybe the disposition at the start having some advantages. Maybe even it's a skill thing. Sometimes, perhaps maybe you can share your thoughts on this. Maybe squat is a more difficult thing to get a hold of than bench for some people, or deadlift. Like naturally pulling maybe comes to them easier. And if you do have a disposition towards one, maybe it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. Or like I'm bad at it now, I'll always be bad at it. And then your effort and discipline and consistency reflects your mindset based on what you only saw a little glimpse of. But if you had just corrected it for years, you might not be able to notice much of a difference, or at least someone who knows what they're doing, is experienced like you, isn't going to look at you and be like, wow, you're such a, so genetically not gifted for benching. No, if you sink equal effort in, equal time, equal discipline, I think it stands to reason that you're going to get the best out of it, regardless
Yeah,
of what you are.
I think bench press just like naturally did not come easily to me. Like it was a movement that just like made literally no sense to me. Like even like kinesthetically, like doing it just felt like weird, and I didn't know like what people were describing when they're like, "Oh, squeeze the bar," like chest to the bar. It all just sounded like weird nonsense to me. So I think that like definitely like discouraged me. But from there, it was like I just like worked less hard on my bench days. Like I wouldn't watch as many like YouTube tutorials of how to do lifts properly. Like the like the total life investment on it. Like maybe I wouldn't sleep as well the night before because I was like, it's a bench session. And so it's like those little things really add up. And like the difference they make when it's like you just make that lift a priority is huge.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and far be it for me to be a bench expert. I have the poverty of poverty benches. Like
I'm gonna be
I'm
honest.
in the gutters.
I feel like a charlatan talking, giving people bench advice. Still, I'm like, I don't even bench 500. I don't know what to tell you, man.
When you look up those videos, though, this is just my personal hot take on like the bench press, like meta, is that I think sometimes people cue it to death, whether it's stuff about like the lats or the grip or what to do with different things. I think there's something to be said or overlooked about just getting hypertrophy in the relevant muscles. I don't know how you would balance out those two things, but it's easy to watch a bench press video and it's like 3 cues that blew up my bench. And as someone who's very advanced, whose definition of blowing up your bench is like getting the next 10 pounds, which fair enough. If that's what you mean by getting the next, 10, that's a huge PR if you're already benching a lot of weight. Uh, I would never say that those cues didn't help, but for a lot of people watching, if they're making technique errors, they're probably pretty egregious errors. So they need to go back to like the foundation and just maybe slow the eccentric down, something like that. What do you think? Do you think like the minutia of cueing makes a big difference for benching?
It really depends on the level you're at, I would say. Because at a high level, yeah, absolutely. Like if I have like a bad technique day, that day is just like gonna go badly. But at like a lower level, especially like if you look at a bodybuilder, like that's not an optimal bench. Like that, this is not like an advanced super technical. They're making it harder on purpose, and they're all benching like 400 or 500 pounds for reps comfortably. It's like that guy just has a bunch of muscle. Clearly, you can get pretty gosh darn good if you just put a ton of muscle. That's obviously not how you would maximize a bench press, but you also need to keep in mind bench press is kind of the lift that just having a bunch of muscle seems to help the most. Because like if you had Big Ramy do like a maximal back squat, he's not going to be the best in the world. Even with like a bit of training, he's not going to be the best in the world. He's going to have time to spend time getting good at that, even though his leg is the size of like a horse. Like he's got more leg muscle than any power lifter ever. But it's like there's gonna be some time. Like there's bodybuilders that are like, you right now are like elite at bench press. You have no idea how to do the movement. Like you're just bringing it to your chest and then like just meat man pressing that thing. So I think there is definitely like some truth to like hypertrophy is really, really important on bench press, like specifically. But if your goal is to like maximize bench press, I think just reaching a solid level of technique should be like a pretty big priority alongside building muscle. And then from there, yeah, just like pack a bunch of meat on. And then as you kind of get more advanced, real dialing in your form, I think you should, it's hard. Sam always brings up the whole like, what's better, sleep or nutrition? And it's like, do both of them or you're going to suck. If you don't do one of them, you're going to be terrible. And so it's like your technique and your the amount of muscle you have should hopefully be like happening at the same time. And if you hyper obsess on either one of them and deprioritize the other, you're probably going to be off for it.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. No one watching this should get the takeaway. Just focus on getting big muscles at the expense of technique or vice versa.
I mean, maybe they should actually.
Maybe.
I think if you're a power lifter, I think you maybe should.
Fair enough. Yeah. When you mentioned bodybuilders squatting, I couldn't help but think of Ronnie Coleman squatting 800 pounds on his back for a couple of reps and just thinking that was not the most technical squat in the world, but man, that's a lot of muscle moving a lot of weight through space. Man.
Yeah, it's definitely like if you're a bodybuilder who barbell squats frequently, you're going to be good at barbell squatting, especially like given like the restricted technique of purposefully making it harder. But like there are guys with big legs who like are not good at squatting because they just like don't barbell squat frequently. And so like there's definitely a lot of that is just like the frequency of doing that movement really impacts how good you're going to be at it.
Do you think that in the case of Ronnie, the execution of it not being the most technical squat might have had a safety element that would have gone hand in hand with his unfortunate injuries?
Um, quick anecdote.
Yeah.
So I think nowadays I have had more muscle than I've been good at bench for many years. Like I think I have more muscle than I have good bench press. And like I don't even think my technique is bad. I don't know why my bench is where it's at, to be honest. It's a little bit confusing to me. But like I have like 21-inch arms, and that's almost all tricep. Like I'm not lean, so that doesn't really count. Like I'm not a bodybuilder. Don't say I have actual 21-inch arms. I have fat guy 21-inch
Max
arms.
Sheather, 10% body fat, 300
Yeah,
plus pounds.
I've got some chunky 21-inch arms, but like there's some definition in my tricep, and I feel like I should be able to bench press more, to be honest. But I think the fact that I've always had more muscle than I've been like strong, I've never tweaked anything in my upper body.
Oh, okay.
Like I've never had like any form of like injury at all. Anywhere. Obviously, my back
Upper body,
tweaks all the
right? Upper
time,
body. Yeah, yeah.
but like not posterior chain, upper body. I've never had like even aches and pains, or almost never. And I think that's just because like if you have an excess of muscle from the amount of weight you're lifting, you're kind of just like very, very robust and over prepared. And so I think part of that is like, yeah, Roddy Coleman had legs big enough to squat 1,000 pounds. Like his legs were bigger than maybe anyone's. The idea that he's gonna like blow his quad off the bone if he's like well prepared for the session is like I feel like a lot less likely.
Yeah, sure, sure. Awesome. So then on the topic of back to bench press. So as far as getting the balance, is part of improving at it just spending time doing the specific movement? Like as in, what is the balance between the specificity work and accessory? And is that a hard balance to strike? Do you think it's different for everyone?
I think as you get farther, specificity becomes more of a priority. Um, I see a lot of like the younger, like good, like powerlifting dudes where I'm like, dog, you just need to go do dumbbell bench. Like that's like you just go hammer triceps. I think that will. I'm not someone to be able to give bench press advice, but you have great technique. You don't need to be doing 6 times frequency like a year into lifting weights. Like just go pack on meat. Like I promise that it'll make you a better lifter for it. But like as you get more and more advanced, I think specificity becomes like more needed. Like I am now probably going to add a like a full 3 times comp bench frequency in, and I'm 8 years into training. And I talked about this with Sam the other day. Specificity is so like such a potent like training application. It's really almost always effective. Just do it if you have the ability to recover from it. Just adding the same thing again in a week is like such a silver bullet that will fix a lot of things that I almost don't want to use it most of the time. Like I don't want to add in another like bench because I'm like I want to wait until I can like I'm even stronger and I can use this as like an easy hack to get extra bench gains. Like I want to like figure out how to get past this plateau without it, just because I know whenever I use it, it's going to be really, really beneficial. And so I think specificity is really, really effective when it comes to getting good at a specific movement. But I think the earlier you are in your training career, the less of a priority it should be. Like I think most beginners, like you can comp bench 1 time a week, and that's gonna be completely fine. If you're just working hard and becoming a muscle man, you're gonna get good regardless. And like as you get farther, who knows? Maybe I'll bench 4 times a week in the future. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that's pretty reasonable. And what you just said would make sense, especially when we put together the context of what else we were talking about a moment ago, where it's like technique is more sensitive. If technique is more sensitive at the higher level, or at least like the advanced cueing and really dialing in that last, 1-2% of the technique, that goes hand in hand with spending more time in that base variation or that competition.
yeah,
I think that
absolutely.
makes, yeah. Yeah, awesome. Now we could contrast that, right? Like that demand for specific training going up. We could contrast that to actually some of the things. I don't know how much you watch YouTube fitness outside of like the realm of powerlifting. Maybe you consume a lot of stuff. You're familiar with Alpha Destiny, Alex Leonidas?
I know the name. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, one of the transformations he's gone through, this is over the course of, I don't even want to say how many years, but I would say several years, maybe even like between 5 and 10 of working on his deadlift. The first time he pulled sumo 600 was, I think it was sometime last year. And that was after years of really not focusing on like the deadlift like at all, like zero training. This is a combination of, in his program, he had good morning was a big focus. I think he had some RDLs and, just a few other exercises to really build up his posterior chain. Now, when we look at the time frame of that, I forget what his best PR was before that. For him, this was like a big deal, big success. And I think that could be valid. But just like you're saying, as you get stronger over time, that's probably less effective. I think part of the dynamic is it's like it is effective, but the amount of time that you would need to elapse for you to see the same effect is longer. And in the context of competition, that's a detriment. Because if you have to wait twice as many blocks to get the same effect because you're spending less time with the specific training, that's not helping you competitively. But if we're just talking recreationally, I think that could make a strong case for like the concept of carryover, right, between movements. So if that worked for Alpha Destiny to spend years not deadlifting and then come back and hit this massive lifetime deadlift PR, it still took years, which for Max Sheether wouldn't work, right? And that's not to say Alpha Destiny would ever recommend that you do that in the context of powerlifting, but I think it would go to show that sacrificing specificity would come at the expense. But if you're improving things within the same movement pattern, eventually you'll get there. What do you think about that?
I think carryover is very real. Like, I used to have a guy who went to my high school and he would just like come lift weights in my basement with me occasionally. Like complete beginner, had never touched a weight, like played tennis casually. I'm, I would say positive that if I just had him do push-ups and tricep extensions, his bench would go up. Like he could not bench for a month straight, and if he just did those two things, his bench would go up like a significant amount, despite not having done the movement. Because like the technical ceiling is so low, just adding muscle and like neural efficiency and the ability to like recruit muscles going up is just going to directly apply to his bench press. And like you said, it's like as you get like farther into like the reaches of like human potential, if you want to say,
Sure.
the desire for specificity is going to go up. But if your general goals are not like I need the maximal deadlift possible, you're gonna just get like physically stronger if you're training like any well structured like training routine. There's a dude at my gym who's like pretty knowledgeable like casual bodybuilder. He used to take it a lot more seriously, but I saw him doing like some like 4 plate like really well done like stiff legs, beltless, and I was like I'm pretty sure if you dead like I taught you how to deadlift for 2 months, you would pull a ton. And it's like just general well done strength training is going to have carryover. And so if your goal is not just like, I need to have the highest sleeved low bar monolift squat in the world, generalized strength training does a pretty good job of making you generally strong. I think oftentimes there's like the idea of like functional strength. And I don't know how bought into that I am. You can definitely build some like very niche, unapplicable strength. Like I don't know how much like your ability to do like a super short ROM wide stance sumo deadlift is going to make you like infinitely stronger than like the average man. But like just a generally well structured strength training routine is going to make you just like way stronger than an average human being.
Yeah. As we talk about these non-competition variations, do you picture any variation that you think would just be a lot of fun to max out in the future, like deadlifting from let's say like 3-inch blocks or like a rack pull or something like that? Or maybe that's part of your training. Is there anything where you think about that, like, hey, it'd be fun to pull 1,000 pounds on this other thing that's not the competition deadlift?
I could pull less off blocks at any height. I would pull less than my competition deadlift.
Oh,
Yeah, you could give me an above the knee rack pull, and I don't think I could pull 800. So the temptation is a lot lower there, to be
oh, okay, gotcha,
honest.
gotcha.
Part of that is just like I've not done them, and so it's like my skill level from my regular deadlift to a rack pull is so different. It's crazy. I'm sure if I trained them for a couple months, I could get very strong at them. But just like not having done them,
Right
I
now,
think
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure right now I would hurt myself pretty grievously if I tried to max out my like at the knee block pull. Um, it's hard to find the training space right now, but I've wanted to do like a full raw high bar squat for a little while. I think that'd be fun. I don't even know if I'd post that because I think I'd get roasted for kind of no matter what it was, but I've always thought that would be like a fun like training experiment, and I like overhead press quite a bit. That one makes way more sense to me like physically. So I'm sure I'll max out my overhead press again after the next meet or two.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, well, and with the changing of like the deficit and pulling from blocked height, a reduced range of motion, right, versus an increased range of motion. I think sometimes people can get too hyper focused on the benefit or the uniqueness, or saying, hey, this thing is this percent harder. Like as a hard and fast rule saying, if you switch to this variation, it is 10% harder than this other thing. I think in many cases it could be. And there's probably, if you had enough like data sampling, you probably could come up with a rough average that would be a good working definition of like the differences. But it's like you said, without training it, you don't stand to be a lot better at it. My first like dedicated, I would say like 6 months to a year of deadlifting, at least I was pulling from a 2.5 to 3 inch deficit because I had a plate collection that didn't include any 45s. So nothing was at that height, that standard height. It was like 35s. So it was like, shave off a bit from each end. Pulling from that deficit didn't necessarily do anything better or worse for my back. Didn't seem to do much more for my quads. It didn't seem to blow up my squat or anything like that. And then when I finally got a good pair of plates to pull with, I thought, oh yeah, okay, a few inches, this ought to add at least 10% to my deadlift. And it was exactly the same. I was like not even 1% stronger on a proper competition height pull. So I was like, all right, enough worrying about deficit for now.
Yeah, I think oftentimes if people like tie themselves to a variation, it's because they're really good at it naturally. And it's like, that's probably not what you should be doing. Like if you're pulling 98% off a 3 inch deficit, it's like if you really think it's dope, obviously feel free. But if you're trying to be like a guy who's trying to like maximize his deadlift, at a certain point, you should probably be doing the one you're worse at that will almost guaranteed have more carryover. Because like if you can get really, really good at something and it's not going to make your pull that much stronger, or like people who are doing 150 pounds more on like a block pull, is that really fixing your lockout or is it your bad starting position? And so like oftentimes I think if like when people like tie their identity to a variation, it's just because they're naturally better at that variation and it's not actually giving them like good carryover for the like training economy they're investing into it.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a problem too. Like you said, if there is a deficit that, let's say, could be addressed by a variation or two, and they're not doing that, but they think they're addressing something, then you're just deceived, right? You're like, you're just spending more energy, more training economy, just reinforcing whatever's there. And that might not be making you worse off, but it's certainly not addressing the deficit that you project.
Yeah, I had this conversation at the gym the other day that it's sometimes hard because someone will say like, "Oh, I have really strong hamstrings because I RDL 4 plates, right?" The exercise RDL means three different things. Like people are doing them so differently that they're
Yeah.
fully different exercises. Because if you were like full hips back, deep hamstring stretch, completely flat back, doing 4 plates beltless, yeah, you're good. Okay, unless you're really, really strong, you're Gucci on hamstring strike. That's not like a training priority. But also, a lot of people just do like a partial range of motion deadlift with like a round back, and it's like, is that a direct hamstring accessory? And so it's like even within the exact same exercise, the execution could really like vary how much of like what the intended effect you're trying to get out of it. And like a lot of the times, it's just like people. I have been very guilty of this many times. You just don't want to bite your ego. You convince yourself that this like partial ROM deadlift is like definitely the thing that's like working for sure, and like this is way more effective. And it's like no, I want to have 2 more plates on there. That's I've done a lot of rows where I was like, power rows actually have way more direct carryover for me. And it's like, no, that's not true. I just like having a bunch of weight on there, and I'm way more tired and way more fatigued from doing these like really trash like 5 plate rows. That if I went and did a really strict 2 plate Pendlay row, I would be way less fatigued and I actually be doing a way better job at hitting the muscle I want to.
Absolutely. Yeah, the RDL is definitely something that can get just butchered, right? Like butchered. And I mean,
I
I guess you could do it for different goals, but it's definitely not, there's no universal form, especially if you see in your
yeah,
gym or
that's the
social media.
that's the thing about RDL is like there's not like an exercise science definition of an exercise. And so it's like you're not even doing like the wrong motion because like no one
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
could say what the definitive definition of an RDL is. So it's like you're not wrong, but also there's a way of doing these that I think might be way more productive for you.
Yeah, for sure. I think Bald Omni Man would be a good example of this. He's promoted a way of doing like kind of like a very flat back with a reach, very stiff legs, on the RDL. So there's like intentionally a gap between the bar and the shins, and there's like very little knee bending whatsoever, with a very strict flat back and an actual lockout at the top, getting so low to the ground that with the full size plate, you're either gently touching the ground or like just barely above the ground. Like that is very different from what you see a lot, and he would talk about this too in video, where the knees bend a ton. So it's like you're getting a good bit of quad work, and it's maybe that's not bad per se, like mechanically bad or dangerous, but look, if there's a point where it's just a deadlift without touching the ground with a controlled eccentric, which maybe is not a bad thing, but it's a distinctly different exercise from what that other guy's doing. And if you don't recognize that difference, maybe it's not going to have the results that you thought it did. You built it up in your head.
Yeah, like two guys, exact same genetics, exact same leverages, both doing 4-plate RDLs. The difference of execution there could mean drastically different strength levels. Like literally like 150 pounds apart in their deadlift, both training the same frequency. Just like the execution there. And I'll admit, I think it's a good clarification. As I have reached a higher level in terms of like total strength, I need my exercise selection to kind of be biasing towards like the most restricting, hardest, lightest thing, just because like the total training economy I have after doing like 575 for 8 on squats or whatever is a lot lower. And so it's like after like a long session of doing that, it's like I'm trying to like get the most out of like the what I have left. And that doesn't apply to beginners as much, because it's like you could have a beginner do 4 sets of 10 on high bar, 5 sets of stiff legs, and do really hard accessories. And it's like they've still got like they're not going to be like crippled tomorrow.
Yeah,
and
heavy barbell rows and different variations of squats.
Yeah, and so like as you get stronger, you kind of pick more self-limiting, like the really like nitpicky exercises to like make it as hard as possible, and you don't need to do that as much when you're earlier on. So I think that's an important clarification, is that now that I'm as strong as I am, it's become more of like I need to pick lighter accessories, but that's not universally true of like
beginner,
average people.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. Sam said very, very similar things, right? It's like, what's the least amount of load that I could really get a training effect for? That's like tangible, right? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So given that that's the case, that you're really trying to get more with less, what would you say is the value of machines? Have you emphasized machines more, or is there enough that you could do with free weights to bias intentionally worse leverages? Is there enough that you can do with free weights, get most of your exercise selection there, or is there an increasing bias on machine work?
I don't think there's any more machine work than I used to do. Just because like you can really like, I think the like idea that like machine work is light and barbell work is heavy is like kind of this like weird rudimentary idea where it's like those lines blur very effectively. Like the amount of fatigue you're going to be doing, like a crazy hard set of 10 on hack squat or a crazy hard set of 10 on leg press, like that's driving a huge amount of systemic fatigue, even though it's a machine exercise, so it's like light and easy. And so like there's kind of like a little bit of a blurred line there. I think like machine work has its place. Anyone who says like you just need to do only compounds, that's silly. They work, like they're doing like they absolutely like are effective. And like vice versa, like it's too fatiguing to do compound movements. I maybe I will reach the level in which that is true. I have not done so yet.
Oh man, I mean, I'd love to see what that looked like though. Like, is there even enough weight on most machine stacks for you to use, or have you maxed them out and beyond?
It really depends on the machine. I had to switch over to the lat pull down for my tricep extensions because I was just like full stacking a regular cable machine. Really, really, really good. I will put because we have the Rogue lat pull down, so I put a band on either side. I'm only doing like 90 pounds on the lat pull down. Like I'm not. If I ever full stack the lat pull down, I've either decided to fully cheat or am a 1,000-pound raw bench presser. It's one of the two. So it's like I'll never run out of weight on there. But like there are definitely machines that I'm more or less close to full stacking. There's definitely like, especially if I go to like a Globo gym, there's machines that's like I can't get good work out of this. There's like a dip press at my gym that like I'm pretty sure I could like one arm do a set of like 100 because like it's like the full stack because it's just not like a heavy machine. Like people at my gym that are like 3-plate benchers are like, yeah, I just can't use it because it's too light. And so it really, really varies depending on the machine. Because there are some machines that a full stack means a lot, and there are some machines
I
that
agree. I agree.
it's always weird to me whenever I see like someone posting their like machine weight, and I'm like, unless it's the exact same brand, the amount of weight literally is nonsense. Like this is not a like actual metric
Yeah,
of
it's
how
not
heavy it is.
universal. I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
because like between two, like I don't know, leg extensions or even like a leg press, like the angle at which the sled is like I've seen some people do 1,500 pound leg presses, and then I'm like, you're not strong. And you're just like you're. It's a good leg press. That is just like an angle at which the sled is carrying most of the weight.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. It makes a big difference. And like the gym I go to, none of the stacks are that big. Like they seem to all be capped out at 200, but that 200 can be very different. Like for me, a lat pull down with 200 pounds, I'm not going to get a lot of reps. I can max it out for reps, but not a lot. Whereas like the adductor machine, 200 pounds, I'm getting 20 or more reps. Like it's just not enough weight for me to really get, unless I'm going to do a stupid amount of reps and sets. I'm just not getting enough out of the adductor machine anymore. And I remember last year, I tweaked my back a little bit, maxed out my overhead press. The technique got a little bit sloppy on the execution, and where I have scoliosis, those vertebrae were not happy with me. So I switched to a machine. I thought,
Ah,
okay, I'll have a training arc where I use the overhead press machine. Like it's a seated one too, right? Back supported, and you've got the handles, and you can basically adjust the height. And there's fixed handles that go like this, and then handles like this, neutral grip. Well, neutral grip or otherwise, the full stack is 200. I could do that for a handful of reps. There's no
mhm.
way. I'm nowhere close to a 200-pound. Forget about standing overhead press, even like the AD press. I would be nowhere close to 200 pounds on that. So just for whatever reason, that like it's doing so much. The cable, the pulley system or whatever, however you want to describe it, it's doing so much of the work for me that I like the number shouldn't mean anything. You're like, oh boy, 200-pound overhead press. No, no, forget about that. That's not what that means.
I think it's been years since like I looked at the weight of a like on a machine. It's just like how many pins deep is it, or
Yeah,
how many
that's right.
pins above the full stack is it? Like the numbers don't mean literally anything.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then sometimes you go to a gym and the machines have just much more weight. Like I've seen gyms that have a good 260 lat pull down. That's a lot of weight. You can get a lot done with 260. And I've seen some that are 300, but when you're limited to 200, there's going to come a point where you can only get so many good high rep sets. Obviously, shaving off weight, doing higher rep ranges, doing chest to bar gives you more out of it, but that's definitely one of the drawbacks of some machines anyway. It's just getting the raw stimulus. It's like that thing I think Eric Bugenhagen used to talk about. It's like machines are just warm ups. That's it.
Yeah, it depends on the machine, man. I've a really hard set of leg press is not a warm.
100%. And like you said, the angle. If it's that more steep angle, that more like 45. Yeah, sure. Good, good. So what are your current favorite accessories? Are there some that you enjoy the most? Free.
When you say in like favorite, do you mean like most effective or the ones I enjoy doing most?
Hmm. Give me
Huge
both.
gap there.
Give me both. Yeah, yeah.
Oh God, what do I enjoy doing most right now? Um, I chill for them way too often. I just like leg extensions a lot. It's like one of my favorite movements. I
I've
think
seen
I've
a
given my
couple of the
little
tier lists with you and Sam, and leg extensions have come up. So
yeah.
yeah,
I'm always debating that those are S tier. Part of it is as I've gotten stronger, my ability to do like a hard squat AMRAP has gone way down. Like that is so irresponsible and stupid of me to do that like with any frequency at all. And so like I kind of do miss that. Like, mental toughness started very, very low, and then I started liking doing hard AMRAPs, and then I got strong enough that I could not frequently do them. And part of that is leg extensions kind of just fill the slot of like it's so funny because it's like considered such like a low, like easy, dinky exercise. Oh my God, I'm on like the verge of tears sometimes. That like if you're doing a set of genuinely hard 30 leg extension, you're deep in it. That is so and so I like it just because it's like it's something that I can like truly like turn brain off and just go ham on. And that's the number of things I'm able to do that on has definitely like dropped as I've gotten smarter and better technique. And so I definitely like it just for that reason. And I think it's really great if you for just like general knee health, if you're doing like if you have a leg extension that you can get through a genuine full range of motion, um, it's not like a super like generally fatiguing motion, and you could just add a bunch of extra leg volume in after squats, and you will be infinitely better off for it. It's like tricep extensions. I don't think you should be doing a tricep extension day like you, but like after you bench press and like your pecs are done and you just go kill yourself on the tricep machine, and you're gonna be or tricep extension, and you're gonna be way better for it. And so it's like as a like a tertiary after you're done, just go bleed on your leg extension. I think it's a turbo S tier in my opinion. Um, God, what other accessories I like right now? Um,
Is there something that you hate but you know it's good for you right now, and so you've had to dial
things
it
that
in?
I hate, but I know that they're good for me. I'm really bad at pull-ups, believe it or not, as a 330-pound man. That I'm getting better at them, but it's pretty embarrassing to be honest for me to go do like
Yeah, yeah.
a real
I
sub
know you and
five on
Sam aren't
pull-up.
the same body weight. Like Sam's quite a bit lighter, but when I put that one video clip in the intro for his episode, and it was him doing one of those pull-ups where you grab the bars higher up, like that. I
Yeah.
was thoroughly impressed. He was probably at least 260 doing that. So yeah. No, there's hope for you. I could see pull-ups at that body weight being extremely intense and hard on the just everything. Yeah.
For a while, I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty pro the assisted pull-up machine. I'm gonna make a pitch for it right now. Most people are not strong enough to do like genuinely good pull-ups. Like if you're a beginner to intermediate, you're just not strong enough to do it.
Yeah.
And like maybe you can get your chin close to the bar, you're not using your upper back. You're kind of like curling and momentum in your
Yeah.
way up. I was the exact same way. I was like, pull-ups are kind of a bicep exercise, which is not how you should feel about a
No,
pull.
no, definitely not.
And so I like went over and I was like, I guess we have an assisted pull-up machine. Oh my God, really effective. And I'm way better at pull-ups now. It's like, you kind of, it's slightly embarrassing. I'm like, that I have to do an assisted pull-up. Um, but oh my God, I got so much more use out of just doing like an actually proper movement with some assistance because I just was not strong enough to do like strict pull-ups at 330. So I'll make a pitch for it. Try an assisted pull-up machine, really like get a full contraction, bring your chest to the bar, and see if it's way harder or way more effective. Like do some volume on it and see if that works better for you if you're a beginner to intermediate.
Yeah, and a lot of it goes back to like we've been talking about this whole interview. Humbling is often worth it. In your case, definitely worth it. And I think you're right for beginners. Just humble yourself a little bit. Pick the thing that's more doable, and then build from there. It would be better to start off on the right foot and then make progress than to like develop some bad habits.
Yeah, I definitely that is a big part of something that I think will make you way better than the vast majority of people who go to the gym is the ability to like bite your own ego and recognize what you're doing. Because like I say that not as someone above you, but as someone who does that all the time. Uh, like especially I was like, I was a very stupid 15-year-old. It's like I don't know, like the number of people who just like if you could just like look at a video and go like I'm squatting high right now. Like that's just what's happening. Because it's like it hurts to admit that to yourself sometimes. It's like it sounds silly, but it's like, oh, I worked really hard. I hit this volume field. And if you look at it and you're like, oh, that like doesn't count. I can't count that as like to be honest with myself. That's like hard. It sounds silly to feel like, yeah, that really you have to fight your ego for this one set of 8 on squats, but it's real. And like, or just being like, yeah, this motion I got, like, I'm really proud of this new PR, and I've let the quality slip so much that it doesn't matter anymore. I think that ability to drop your ego it will make you so much better than if you don't.
Yep. Yeah, it's a big difference. Yeah, even on the pull-ups, one of the things I'm trying to work on right now, I'm actually having a lot of fun with it, doing chest to bar motions, both for the lat pull down and for pull-ups just generally. I have a goal this year. Actually, I'd like to surpass this goal. I think I'm getting close, maybe a couple months out. 10 chest to bar pull-ups. I'm about like 183 right now, so I'm not too heavy, but I still feel like that's a decent like benchmark for like a calisthenic type of strength standard.
Mhm.
And I'm getting close. I did 170 by 9 on the lat pull down, but if I just go to like a normal lat pull down height, just getting the bar like just below the chin, like I can do 200 for reps. So there's like a 25 to 30 pound disparity between like the extra several inches of range of motion to make it touch like the top of the sternum. So it's worth
Mhm.
doing that. It's a lot less to stress, especially on things like my forearms. I see a benefit in doing like straps at the point that I'm at with something like a weighted pull up, and I'll even use that for something else. the straps, I find there's something about you can focus a bit more on driving with your elbows. And if you drive more with your elbows on a vertical pull motion, you're going to get more out of your lats, right? Like you said, don't treat it like a bicep exercise. Don't just worry about
Yeah.
squeezing with your forearms and then bending here. Actually pull those shoulders down and drive your elbows down. It's like your pockets, right? That's okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think I've heard a lot of people say that using straps on like basically any back exercise, for whatever reason, thinking about squeezing the bar like really lowers the mind muscle connection. If you're a power lifter, I would say maybe steer away from it just because you need to grip a barbell and like you're gonna run into grip problems eventually if you plan on being really strong. So
Right.
I think generally it's advisable like yeah, just hold on to everything. Like if you're a power lifter, I think you'll be better off for it if you throw away your straps unless you're like a hook grip guy and you need to do a set of 10 or whatever nuance. But like generally, just hold on to stuff and it'll benefit you with someday. I promise. Yeah, I think a big part of it also is like with upper back movements. Or even all movements, the way you like look at or feel the movement is like, am I just bringing the weight from point A to point B, or am I like actually trying to contract this muscle? It really makes the difference in the amount of weight you're going to be using. Because like if I'm just like trying to kip and pull a pull-up bar down to my chin, I'm gonna be like rotating my arms down to like, ugh, and I'm gonna be getting way less effective work out of my upper back rather than like exact same range of motion. But if I'm like drawing my chest up towards the bar, there's gonna be a lot more of like an effective uh, stimulus for the dose there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. 100%. Now, when you think about upper back exercises, do you have a favorite?
Ooh, so really funny Yates rows I've been doing lately. It's really funny. I did not know this, but a slightly controversial exercise, which I thought was weird. Um, I did not like them for 2 months straight. I did them every week, and I was like, "These are stupid, and I'm not getting anything out of them." It took me 2 months to really start like feeling like it's an effective exercise, and now I think it's a big part of the reason my upper back strength has gone from like a weakness to like adequate on my deadlift. Um, that's definitely one that like it is very tempting to just slang some weight around, and you're getting so much less effect if you do it. Like just whatever weight you think you're using, just take like a full plate off and just like actually squeeze your upper back at the top, and it'll make such a difference in like the like effectiveness of it. Because like I could pretty comfortably throw around 5 plates on some Yates rows, and I would get almost nothing out of it. But if I do 305 with like a strict pull, I'm getting like a lot of work out of it.
Yeah. 100%. Well, yeah, I remember watching like different videos, people talking about like the Rubish style, right? Where it's like you're almost like falling into a deadlift, like it's just throwing around a ton of weight. What are your thoughts on trying to balance like the lower back fatigue versus just the raw stimulus on horizontal pulls just in general? Like, is there much of a need for something like a seal row, or for a lot of cases, even with powerlifters, are you just good to just go do your pen lays and barbell rows and other things? Is there really much thought that needs to go into that?
I've got a little bit of a take on this one. Uh, if you think it's fun, do heavy barbell rows. If your goal is just like if you just enjoy them, absolutely go do some shitty power rows. I am not going to stop you. If you want to talk about like a kind of functional strength movement, that's kind of one of them. Is just like violently throwing weight around. That's probably pretty effective. If your goal is to maximize your deadlift, I think very silly in almost every situation. I because it's like I the pitch oftentimes is like, oh, I'm getting like extra like back work out of it as well, right? And if that's your point, just do more deadlifts. Like if you have the training economy to do like these like shitty power rows, just do more deadlifts and then separately train your upper back. I think you're like trying to hit two birds with one stone, and you're doing both of them less well. Um, I did. This is kind of a hard one. Whatever, like I disagree. Even though there are like good powerlifters who do
Oh
like
yeah,
power rows,
oh yeah.
but also that has been dying the last couple of years. Like the number of people doing power rows has drastically fallen off. And I think that's for a reason is that like if you have the lower back economy to be doing power rows and you're trying to maximize your deadlift, just do more deadlifts and then go separately do your upper back in a way that's not as fatiguing on your low back.
That seems pretty sensible, and I think that hits a note that that you've mentioned before, that earlier on quality, right? Like it's gonna allow you to focus on both specificity and quality, and if it's extra work in both those things, you're going to improve. So I don't
Mhm.
see personally, I don't see the harm in that approach at all. But that's not to say that someone couldn't improve doing the other way. But yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, like I don't. I'm making a pitch for like this like pseudo powerlifting optimal. You can get
yeah,
really, really strong not training powerlifting pseudo optimal. Don't take this as like the Max Bands power
yeah,
rows.
that's right.
They're a fun exercise. I think they're dope. Absolutely, if you enjoy them, go do them. I'm just like I said, making the little like if you're trying to absolutely maximize something, I think it's probably a poor use of training economy.
Seems reasonable to me. It seems like it would maximize the quality, and that's probably underrated by some. Now, is there any general advice that you'd like to give someone who's considering getting into powerlifting before they jump out of the pan into the fire? Let's say if they're already working out now.
Just like watching YouTube videos. There's a lot of terrible information out there. You're gonna have to get good at picking out which one is the actual good information. Um, go watch the Juggernaut Strength Basics series. That's really good. What else? Getting into lifting. Learn how to do each of the motions. Like you don't need to be a super technician of the universe, but just like focus on learning how to do them to like quality. Technique is going to be a 10-year long plus journey to get really, really good. So just start chipping away at that now. Um, don't take it too seriously off the bat. Go have fun. I think a lot of times early there's a lot of dudes who will come in and be like, this is my life, rah rah. I will die for it, and then quit. And so it's like still have a life and succinct your training goals and habits to like how much you're invested in it. Don't just go crazy off the bat. You'll almost always burn out for it.
Sounds like pretty solid advice. It's good. And any final parting words for someone who's watching this and thinking, I'm really stuck on my squat, bench, and deadlift. Is there, or just one of those three? Is there anything that you would say to them how to sort of approach thinking about that situation? What might be their deficit, or is there some general stuff they can expect to focus on and improve?
Sam made this joke a little while ago. Is that only in like powerlifting is telling someone to work harder considered a cop out from a coaching perspective? But I think that should usually be your number one question when you run into a plateau. Just honestly ask yourself, "Am I working hard enough?" Because back to humbling yourself. So many times I'll just be like, "Dang, I had a terrible lock." I kind of sandbagged like some shit. Like that's my fault. Like I just didn't work hard enough as I should have. Like I really let myself down. The program doesn't need to change. That was on me. My like habits weren't as good as they should have been. My intensity wasn't as good as it should have been. Nothing about like the frequency or programming needs to change. I just need to be tougher and work harder. So that's not always the problem. There are probably plenty of problems. That should be one of the earlier questions you ask. Is the reason I failed just due to a lack of effort?
Fantastic. I think that's fair enough. Awesome. Well, to the audience, thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you, Max, for joining me today. I really appreciate your input on this. For all things powerlifting and more, guys, you should go over and subscribe to Shethar Training.